I heard that there hasn't been a lot of investment in the oil refinements. I heard like the average age is like 20 years or something crazy like that. But what fascinates me is all the political motivations behind all of these decisions. And if you guys remember, right, what happened quickly after Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe basically went into an energy crisis, right? And we were being told for, I don't know, the public was being sold for, I don't know how long. Hey, renewable energies, we could totally do this. There was this very famous video of Trump basically warning the Germans saying, hey, you guys are beholden to Russia and whatnot. So and then I'm going to tie this in with Bitcoin, of course. Under a Bitcoin standard, I don't think these types of decisions would be viable. And I think Saifedean touched upon this in the Bitcoin standard. I think like all of these decisions, all these politically motivated decisions or energy policies are just because governments have access to this money printer and it allows them to do all these crazy things.
Totally. Yeah. And this is how the other half of the world is fighting back, is they're saying, you think you're controlling this cycle, right? And they're looking at it and saying, well, how about this? And they're just basically taking a wrench and just throwing it into the gears by adjusting the supply of energy itself. And when they're doing that, if and this is a big if, because I don't know if they're actually going to be able to, maybe the recessionary inputs are way stronger than their suffocation of the supply of the oil market, like the speed of this. I don't know. But let's play devil's advocate and say that they're successful and the price of oil surges over 100 and maybe it goes up to like 140 or something crazy because maybe they're doing things behind the scenes to control that. Every person trading treasuries in the world, NATO, G7 treasuries, like, I'm sorry, you're getting your face ripped off twice, right? Like it is going to be devastating to that market if we continue to see energy prices run at a time where they desperately need, these central bankers in the G7 countries desperately need a recession, desperately, to get any of this under control and to make the bank's balance sheet solvent again without these backstops and surgical tools that they're using.
What's interesting too is that the American investors are people who are in American equities, they don't want a recession either. And so the financial guys are balking at recession, and the market wants any sign of weakness coming out of the Fed. The market is like, let's just go immediately back up again. And we're closer to the all-time highs now than we are to the market bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is crazy.
And this is after this aggressive raising from the Fed, this aggressive raising from the Fed. And everybody was like, if the Fed hikes, I believed this 2 years ago, that if the Fed hikes, risk assets can't do well, big tech can't do well, Bitcoin can't do well. Turns out that's not true. Right. And so I think there's a lot of, it's really complicated what's going on. It's hard to get a handle on it.
It's counterintuitive because things that you would expect to be happening right now are not happening. In fact, they're doing the exact opposite. I'll give you an example. So like when I'm looking at unemployment numbers and I'm looking at this negative spread in credit that currently exists right now, you would expect equities to be getting ready for like a massive drop or to get just punished. And from momentum, if I'm just speaking strictly about momentum in equity right now is suggesting we're just getting ready to start a bull run.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so the only way that I can wrap my head around that is the market is calling the BS of the central bankers and saying, no, I think you're going to have to debase the currency in such a drastic way. And in short order, like within the coming 2 quarters or 3 quarters, you're going to have to do that we are front running the move and we're bidding scarce, profitable equity. That's what I think is happening.
It's important to understand, like you were talking about, the battle that was raging between, OPEC and the powers that be over here. I mean, there's also a battle that's constantly always being waged between the Fed and the market. And what the Fed mainly does is psychologically manipulate the market, and the market attempts to, tell whether the Fed is lying or not. Right. And I think I think more so than ever, the market has gotten wise to the fact that, like, no, this is a game of chicken and none of us are swerving. If you look at the passive flows into ETFs, investors haven't blinked. I mean, the passive flows just keep coming. They keep coming because where else are you going to go? There's no other game in town, right? And you're going to have to sit and take devaluation because of the inflation rate. And so even, people in their 401ks haven't pulled. People who are, just passively indexing haven't pulled. Like, so if it's a game of chicken, the market is not budging, right? And Powell is not budging also. So like something is going to have to give at some point.
Something's going to have to break, right? But hold on, because what fascinates me, and perhaps it's, taking the orange pill and then kind of opens your eyes to a lot of things, is I don't think people would be necessarily okay with this system if they really knew what was going on. I think the vast majority of people are completely asleep to this. If you live in the United States, the bread and circuses are strong, so to speak. You have developed financial platforms. It's really in the global South that, the guy in the suit on TV goes on, gives a speech on like why you have to use their money, and everyone doesn't really take them seriously. Yeah. That really hasn't happened in developed countries. You still take the guy on TV with the suit seriously, even though the things that he's saying, like, I don't know if you guys have seen like the recent press conferences from Powell, like to me, it doesn't even. Did you guys see that very famous video where he tried to explain why 2% inflation?
Right. Yeah.
I hadn't, but I could imagine.
Like it's so ridiculous,
Nico, like Powell has a dual mandate, right? And on the one hand, he's responsible for low unemployment, and on the other hand, he's responsible for price stability. And he's basically letting everybody know, I don't give a fuck about low unemployment. I'm trying to cause high unemployment. In fact, I only care about price stability. That's it. So, I mean, yeah, if you're one of the average Americans who, you don't have many assets, you're working a job, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have $400 in the event of an emergency, high unemployment is basically a death knell for you. And Powell and, the powers that be are trying to cause that in order to save the sinking life raft. And they have to. There's no other move that they can really make. I mean, if we were sitting in the same chair, we would probably do the same thing that he's doing. In fact, I actually think Powell is a very good Fed chairman, right? It's just he's been given an unwinnable task.
No doubt.
Yeah. I have the clip for you guys if you want to check it out. It's about 2 minutes. All right, let's do it.
For the general public, for those working families and people, why 2%? Why is getting it to 2% so important?
So that has become the globally agreed, essentially all major central banks target 2% inflation in one form or another. How
does that help my Nevada families? How does that help people in Nevada?
I'll tell you how it does. And it's I guess it's obviously not it's not obvious how that is, but 2% inflation, to have people believe that inflation is going to go back to 2% really anchors inflation there, because the evidence is and the modern belief is that people's expectations about inflation actually have an effect on inflation. If you expect inflation to go up 5%, then it will. If everyone kind of expects that, because that's what businesses and households will be expecting, and it'll kind of happen because they expect it. So having a 2% inflation goal, which we had for many years.
Okay. What did you just say?
No, a bunch of nods. By the way, that's my senator, Cortez Masto. So I'm proud of her. She did a good job. Normally, I don't agree because she's a Democrat, but she did a good job.
I mean, I'm speechless.
Yeah, me too. I don't know what to say.
I don't even know what to say other than like, what a clown show.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's explaining what a psychological manipulation game it is, though, because he's saying if people believe it's going to be higher and we suck at our jobs, then it will be higher because we suck at our jobs, right? It's crazy.
Meanwhile, I mean, it's mathematical. It really is. When you supply the amount of currency, I mean, I've used this example in some other interviews with like Monopoly. Like if you flood the board with a bunch of monetary units, like it's going to change the valuation of everything on the board. There's other ways to impact inflation beyond just the monetary, just the input of the units. I mean, you could go through a massive, like if we're talking about a small jurisdiction, right, that has its own currency, if they go through like a situation where they're at war or they're dealing with this, they have to adjust the monetary supply. There could be damage to the infrastructure, which will drive prices. So like if I go in there and I destroy all the supply chains for oil, like the price of oil is going to go up because it's harder to get it. So there's things that impact it, but at the core, on a long-term trend, like if you're adjusting the number of units in the system, that's why it goes up. So the question is a very important one, and just watching them tap dance around is just, hilarious, because there's no way you can answer that question.